Good morning, Aditya.
Good morning, Suresha sir. How are you?
I am fine, thank you. It was really nice meeting you over here. As we know each other, I am Suresh. I'm the CEO of Nemadi. And would you mind introducing yourself once?
I'm Aditya, the founder of Greentivity Enviro Solutions.
Can you give us some background of how you got into this and how many years you've been running the STP?
I'm an entrepreneur by accident. I've been involved in RWA, especially apartments, for the last 2+ decades, either as a secretary or as a treasurer or some kind of an office bearer. When we ourselves had an issue in 2017-18 with our own apartments STP, me being the secretary at that time, we evaluated 28 vendors, and we found that only 3-4 of them were up to the mark, whether technically or professionally, and then the rest of the vendors were not up to the mark, didn't meet our expectations, and things like that. And then by accident, we thought, hey, there's an opportunity here to serve fellow apartment and RWA dwellers, and that's how we got into this business of operating, building, and refurbishing sewage treatment plants.
Can I say that the necessity made you explore how to get the best solution out of STP issue? And that's how you sensed an opportunity and then got into this business.
Exactly. Necessity is the mother of all inventions, and that's what happened to us.
Great, great, great. So can you just tell us what all the different types of STP, like basics of an STP, like what's STP and why it is important for residential projects to start with?
An STP is a sewage treatment plant. It helps you in recycling the sewage in your apartment, right? Water, as you know, is a precious resource. Only 2% of the world has, only 2% of the entire water in the world is potable and fit for human consumption. So, by law, you're supposed to have an STP, as per the town planning norms. And an STP is an asset which, will help you recycle every drop of water that you consume. So, one, it's a finite resource, and 11 to 14 times or 11 to 18 times, depending on your plant efficiency, every liter of water can be recycled and reused.
Is there any norm, like we were talking about the norm from the town planning department? Does every house require to have an STP or a project? If so, what are the criteria? If you just salient.
So broadly, the norms say that, broadly in the central business district of Bangalore, if you've built anything more than 20,000 square meters of built up area, as per law, you need an STP. If you look at the erstwhile 110 villages of Bangalore, if you've built anything beyond or in the range of 2,000 square meters, by law, you need an STP.
Okay, that will be. So, it is not only mandated by the government, but also it helps us to conserve water.
Exactly.
And polluting the other
Yes.
natural resources.
Yes.
So that's a two-way advantage.
It's a two-way advantage, yes.
Great.
If you look at Bangalore traditionally, it's a lake-based ecosystem where you have these multiple lakes that, right from Kempegowda's time, when the city was planned, right, all the lakes are daisy-chained, and all the effluent or influent, is let out into the lakes.
Okay. That is really surprising. We are talking in a STP, which is right below the ground level. It's in a basement, and this is maintained by you in such a spick and span condition. I think I don't even smell a little bit of even that foul smell normally the STPs are associated with. And the environment here, and their flooring, the walls, the tanks, they are all so neatly maintained. It really gives me an sort of the stigma attached with visiting an STP. People usually try to avoid, but here we don't get that kind of feeling at all.
So one of the things when we founded Greentivity was to be different from the norms or different from the crowd, right? And if we don't maintain these kind of standards, or then we will defeat the purpose of Greentivity, because we said we'll change the norms, we'll change people's perceptions, because wherever we went, in our journey, we found that 99% of the STPs are not up to the mark, either functionally or operationally or biochemistry wise or operator skill wise. So unless we practice what we preach, we will not be able to showcase to the world at large that how Greentivity is different.
That's really wonderful, wonderful. And you've really shown it in the place here. I'm really thrilled to see an STP in such a nice condition over here.
Thank you so much.
Okay. So the next, coming to, in your experience, you have served so many apartment complexes. So what are the pain points they experience from their perception before they come to you and you start giving them the service? Can you just explain?
So a typical apartment customer of ours is someone who's experienced, multiple STP vendors, say over a period of 24 months. If they've experienced 2 or 3 STP vendors, various kinds of STP vendors. They can be an A grade vendor, a B grade vendor, a C grade vendor, or their own plumber or their own security staff running the STP. And then, they've come to the end of the road when, they don't have any more answers. There's nothing more that Google or YouTube or anything can teach them. And there's no more, it's the end of the road with regards to DIY. So that is the profile of customers, especially with regards to apartments who come to us.
Is it to save cost or the ignorance?
It's a combination of both. It's the combination of both. In this whole apartment ecosystem per se, committee after committee, management committee after committee comes in and, probably acts like tailors. They only want to cut costs, right? Now, anything that is visible, an STP unfortunately is not visible to all residents. But if you take a lift, if you take a generator, if you take a children's playing area or any other common area, those are areas where, the rest of the residents will go and look, touch and feel, and any lacunas with regards to operations or maintenance and things like that are visible, and things, start getting escalated, right? But no resident comes to an STP. Forget residents, even management committee members, will probably come into an STP only once or twice a year, or when there is a problem, right? So it stems from there, You don't visit it, so you don't know. You might live in a super premium apartment or a mid-range apartment, but if you don't keep visiting your facilities, including your STP, you will never know what is wrong. And then this whole L1 business, or this whole business of cutting corners, saving costs, adds further insult to injury.
Can you just explain what is that L1?
See, L1 typically is that, for any component or any service, that you require in an apartment, typically you will solicit 3, 4, 5 quotes and go with the cheapest vendor.
Tender.
Right? Now the cheapest vendor may not be someone who's right for you. If you can come down
we walk down
here.
Yeah.
We will walk down.
Yeah.
Just mind your step. Let me give you an example of a typical L1 culture. If you look at a sand and carbon filters, right? The A grade sand that you use, and you use 6 grades of sand in it, depending on the coarseness, to achieve the kind of filtration that you need. If you use A grade sand to fill up a filter this size, just the sand or the media alone will cost you about 38 to 40,000 rupees.
40,000 rupees.
Right? But then in the market, there are people who will say, pressure sand filter, media replacement, and charge you 14,000 for it.
Oh.
Now, whether they are reusing media from some other place, or, just buying reverse sand instead of actual silica sand,
Okay.
God only knows.
What is the difference between reverse sand and silica sand?
River sand typically, to give you a parlance, is locally available sand, which has been graded locally using a wire mesh.
Wire mesh.
Right? And it will have impurities in it, and when you put it under pressure in a filter, it will start disintegrating and becoming powder.
Okay.
Right? Whereas when you use silica sand, right, from a reputed OEM, and there are various OEMs that we work with, for the lifetime of the filter, of course, the media has to be changed every 12 to 18 months depending on your usage patterns, right? Just like you change the filter of your oil filter of your car or the air filter of your car. But then for that 12 to 18 months, there will be no degradation in the granules of the media, of the silica sand. And when it comes to you, it is crystal clear and pure of any biological impurities. It is sterilized. There is no mud. There is no contaminants in it.
So ultimately what you are telling is that L1 is the lowest
Quote.
bid,
Yes.
lowest bid, and you don't know whether they are using the genuine fresh material or a reused material. This reminds me of, like in market, all the lubricant oils.
Yes.
They are available.
Yes.
The removed lubricants which have lost their property, which are no more proper for use, they are filtered, colored, and resold again.
It's exactly the same thing that happens here.
Yeah. So
You know, why talk only about filter media? You know, I've seen people who, you know, will strip a pump or a motor, get it rewound, and will never change the oil seals with brand new oil seals or the mechanical seals with brand new seals. Or even the bearings which are worn out, you know, instead of buying genuine bearings from SKF or NBK or whoever, you know, they'll go and buy these Chalu bearings from Shivaji Nagar or somewhere, you know, from the
Gujri, yeah.
Right.
Second hand used bearings.
Used bearings.
So that's how they cut the cost and they become very competitive.
Yeah, ultra competitive.
Ultra competitive.
So,
okay, okay. Ah,
so
okay, okay.
So I always, give a piece of advice or, suggestion to my prospective clients. I say, make your STP vendor write biochemistry on a piece of paper with a pencil. And if he has problems spelling it or writing it, then that's not the right vendor for you.
That's correct. Who cannot spell biochemistry can never work with a STP which solely works on the principles of biochemistry.
Exactly.
Correct, correct. So this is the sand filtration unit.
This is the sand filtration unit, and here you have the activated carbon unit.
Okay.
Again, you know, the best carbon or the best charcoal that you can buy for an activated carbon system is made by only one company in India.
Oh,
There is only one OEM in India. Everyone knows Bharat Carbon Black.
Okay.
But then, you know, we found instances where, you know, people have filled it up with charcoal, you know, available at,
oh. So you mean
you know, KR market.
They use all the spurious material,
Exactly.
which is not even the lookalike.
Yes.
It's a totally spurious material. Something akin to adulteration in food and other things.
Sure. Yes.
And they quote a lower price and then they
Yes.
get attention.
Yes.
Oh.
So it's a very highly unorganized market where in a city like Bangalore, you have hardly, you know, 4 or 5 of us who are professional, trained, and who know what we are doing. But the rest of the 200 plus STP, so-called STP vendors in Bangalore, you know, at some point in time have been, you know, watchmen or plumbers or STP operators somewhere, and, you know, they've evolved or grown into STP vendors.
That's very similar to, I'm from civil engineering background. All the masons, you know, they will start acting like contractors.
Exactly.
And tomorrow they'll replace the engineers even.
Exactly.
And
That's
quoting that I have built so many buildings and nothing has fallen. Who knows? They don't know record. Nothing is technical, but they start replacing the engineers even. That's the ultimate
True.
thing.
True.
Can you just explain what we have come to this basement 2 here? So you showed us the pressure sand filter, activated carbon filter, and this. Could you just explain these things before we move on to the next
So
section?
we have our sludge recirculation pumps here.
Okay.
These are the pumps that recirculate the sludge from the secondary clarifier
Okay.
into the anoxic zone, and also when required help us in expelling the sludge
Okay.
from this STP into the sludge holding tanks or into the sludge drying beds.
Okay. Then there are 2 pumps. They're a standby.
Yes, one
Is a standby.
every bit of equipment in an STP, which is electromechanical in nature,
Okay.
you will have them in pairs.
Pairs.
Okay, because there is a concept called pump duty. any pump or motor cannot be run, beyond
Continuously.
a certain number of hours continuously.
Okay.
So if you look at these coupled sludge pumps, the OEM recommends that, for more than 2 hours, it should not be run continuously.
Okay. Overheating.
Overheating, wear and tear,
And,
and things
so
like
you
that.
switch the other one so that will act as
Yeah, you maintain
a
pump
reliever.
duties. Yes.
a reliever in sports.
Yes.
And then also it will act as a spare. In
Yes.
case of one of them fails, you get some time to replace them. Am I right?
Exactly.
This I have seen in many STPs. My experience, they feel that why two? Only one can do the job and keep running. And if the other one fails, then the whole STP itself is stopped. God knows when they restart it again.
Yeah, though STPs look modular, everything works as one single unit and it has to work in harmony with a certain kind of synchronization,
Okay.
right? Because after all, end of the day, it is a biological process that is happening here.
That many people miss.
They
think
miss.
some chemical you add, it gets treated.
There are no chemicals that are used here. Absolutely no chemicals. Other than the sodium hypochlorite or the chlorine that is used to disinfect the water,
Okay.
we stick to mainstream technologies, which, only 4 are approved, whether by the NGT or the KSPCB or the CPCB.
Okay.
And we stick to those 4 mainstream technologies only. And in those 4 mainstream technologies that are approved, there's absolutely no necessity for any kind of chemical, any kind of enzyme to make your STP
Can
function.
you just elaborate those 4 types?
So the 4 types of technologies, or the 4 processes rather, that have been approved by the CPCB, are ASP, activated sludge process, iterations of ASP, which is, EAS, extended aeration activated sludge process.
Okay.
Then you have the SBRs, the sequential batch reactors,
Reactor.
which are very popular because, whoever comes from a civil background, whether it is the architect or the builder or whoever, when they look at a SBR, they feel that, 1 or 2 tanks lesser are required. But then
Space. Less space.
space also, is a little lesser, say 15 to 20% lesser. But then what people fail to understand is that sewage does not come in batches. Your inflow is continuous.
Continuous.
And especially in an apartment kind of a situation, you can never predict. You cannot have a timetable and say, dear residents, you will use the washroom only between 6 and 8 a.m. Right?
Correct.
Then there is MBR and MBBR. MBR and MBBR, in smaller STPs below 100 KLD, they work fine.
What is, can you elaborate MBR?
Membrane bioreactor
Reactor.
and moving bed biofilm reactor.
Biofilm reactor.
They're ultimately, everything is an iteration of the original ASP process. As per our point of view, while we are technology agnostic and, we can operate, manage, run and build any kind of technology, our preference is to go with ASPs or extended aeration because they're pain-free, they're trouble-free, they require a lot less maintenance once the plant is set up, and they're very, very resistant to load shocks.
Oh,
When you say load shocks, you don't know who's using Harpic, who's using Sabina, who's pouring down acid down their toilets, who's using Prill, or who's getting their house painted and dumping the paint.
Oh.
Sitting inside an STP, as an STP vendor, you have no control over this. So typically when you look at MBR, MBBR or SBR systems, they are very, very susceptible to load shocks. So when you get all kinds of these funny chemicals coming in, the biochemistry of your STP gets affected, and that's where you have issues of smell and excess sludge and fouling of the STP.
it's the living bacteria which digest the sludge and treat it.
Yes.
So in case of any harpic or some acidic material is flushed down, that will come and kill the bacteria and disrupt your process. Am I right?
Exactly.
So that you call it as a load shock.
That is a load shock.
Load shock. That's a very challenge. I think that's
It's a challenge. It's a challenge. See, while we can be ready for things like, detergents and, cleaning products that people use in their houses, not that we discourage them from using it, but then the issue becomes a little more serious, when you have painting happening in your house and paint and turpentine, or, nowadays it's very fashionable to call these app-based companies to come and do deep cleaning.
Okay.
Right? and the concentration of chemicals that they use to clean your house might give you instant results, but those repercussions are felt inside an STP.
Oh, okay.
So that's what, when you dump all these kind of chemicals knowingly or unknowingly down your drain and it ends up in an STP.
I think this is a very valuable lesson. See, I'm using my flat, my washroom, but I don't know the repercussions of my flushing with the chemicals to the STP, which is again mine but not seen. It is working somewhere else for me. By using all this, I am spoiling my own system.
Yeah, indirectly you are in fact, in a way contributing towards the higher operating and maintenance costs of your own STP.
STP, yes.
On one hand, every apartment resident,
Yeah.
here.
After. Yeah. You're telling something, you can complete
So
that.
on one hand, you have every resident or a management committee of a RWA wanting to reduce costs, but unless there are behavioral changes and people, the whole ecosystem is made aware of things, like this load shock factor, one will never be able to optimize and reduce the costs in
the
STP.
long run.
In the long run.
Meanwhile, we're just having a look at this.
So here what we are seeing is a sludge press. So once you have enough and more dead sludge in your sludge holding tank, the sludge is supposed to be pumped into the sludge press and compressed here. You have these plates with these membrane filters here. You press it and make cakes, okay, or slabs out of it, and that can be further composted and then reused in your garden as garden manure.
Great. This is the ultimate product of the sewage treatment.
Yeah, it's the ultimate product of the sewage treatment plant, but 90% of the time sludge presses are not used. Let me, put that in as well, because it's a very messy and expensive affair to manage a sludge press.
Oh, okay, fine. So otherwise, how do they dispose it of?
We prefer to use sludge drying beds, which are nothing but a static water tank open to the sky, where you pump the sludge into it, the solid settles there and the liquid comes back to our STP.
So it serves the same
it serves the same purpose,
but in a different form.
in a different form.
Maybe semi-solid form or something.
No, it becomes powder.
Powder?
It dries and becomes powder, color, it's odorless.
Okay. Then what are this? Could you just explain?
So this is a fancy UV system, ultrafiltration, UF system, ultrafiltration system. So when we work with Greentivity, one of our USPs is that we say we'll give you the same quality of water without the UF system, because UF systems are very expensive to operate and maintain. Like each filter here will cost you about 2.5 lakhs to replace this filter.
Okay.
And each filter has to be replaced every 8 months to a year.
Okay.
So our USP is that we commit to customers that will give you same quality of water which a UF will give you with a normal STP.
I presume this was installed before you took over the maintenance of this STP. So
this was installed before.
Okay.
It was installed before, and there was a dependency on this, because without this they'd never had crystal clear water. So once we took the operations and maintenance of this STP, we have decommissioned this, and we are saving them a whole lot of money by not using an ultrafiltration
but giving the same quality of water.
Same quality of water.
That's great. That's great. Then these are all?
These are all the feeder motors for the ultrafiltration
system. Yeah. Great.
So there's a lot of equipment that has been decommissioned in this particular site because we've decommissioned the ultrafiltration unit.
Oh, that means not only that unit, also all the
All
supporting
the
systems.
peripherals of it and all the allied
So if you can
equipment
achieve the same quality without that, a lot of cost savings.
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Aditya. You've given a lot of information on type of STPs and how they operate, the basic principles. So what I understand is everything is again dependent on biochemistry, and the bacteria do the job.
You're absolutely right, sir.
Something
it all boils down to biochemistry and those tiny microscopic bacteria that actually eat up the sewage and give you clear water.
It is something like a human digestive system.
You're absolutely right.
Very much similar.
It's similar to the human digestive system, but given the quantum and the volume of sewage that you're dealing with, everything has to be accelerated.
Okay.
And that's where, things like blowers and other equipment come in.
So, having explained all this, can you just tell me what are the factors that are to be considered while selecting the right type of STP for a residential project?
So there are two factors that will greatly influence this. One is the number of people that are going to inhabit that project. The second is the location of the STP. Like if you look at this STP, it's very well designed. The layout is very nice. Every bit of equipment, every nook and corner of the STP is accessible because it has been purpose built to be a standalone STP, and as an afterthought, it has not been fitted, under some staircase or under some basement. I think, builders and developers are now waking up to the fact that, especially in light of these couple of accidents that are happened and, few people losing their lives in STPs, the general public, including, those responsible to build these STPs are becoming more conscious that, things like ventilation, things like layout, things like access needs to be a little better because after all, they're human beings who come and work here like you and me.
Correct, correct. See, it's really astonishing. I can see the beam of light coming from top. So, very rarely in an STP. STPs all, they look like dungeons. And as you rightly said, even I get scared sometimes when people die in STPs. Can we enter there? Is it safe? So, these things will move up our confidence and we feel absolutely no hesitation in moving around and discussing here.
Yeah, it is ultimately, it is easier to operate, maintain, repair, and generally be, unless you can comfortably come inside an STP and spend some time here, you will not able to execute your duties, you will not able to do whatever you're supposed to do inside an STP, right? Like if you were suffocated here, we would move out.
Correct. And the same happens to the operators also.
Yeah, exactly. They are
when
human
they move out,
beings.
the things remain unattended.
True.
See, like we call in civil engineering, when you have a very high-rise building without lifts, during construction time, the supervisor will not go there very frequently because it's very uncomfortable.
Exactly.
Whatever you force him, whatever you pinch him, you will not go there. The supervision suffers as the floors go up.
True.
Same thing applies to STP also.
Same.
If the
Similar.
atmosphere is conducive, people stay here happily, operate it neatly. Even though it is provided, if they don't stay here, doesn't serve the purpose.
You're absolutely right, sir.
So, coming to other questions like how do you calculate the capacities of STP? Some critical factors you can tell.
See, as per the published norms, it is, a human being is supposed to generate 135 liters of sewage as per the government of India or whoever is the
National Building Code, I think.
as per the National Building Code. But then that norm, personally, I don't subscribe to that norm because that National Building Code and that particular number of 135 liters was arrived at an era when, all of us were bathing with buckets and mugs. We didn't have showers. We didn't have those fancy health faucets. We didn't have rain showers. We didn't have pressure pumps. So I think that number from 135 should, I personally would be more comfortable with about, 175 to 200 liters of sewage per person per day. Like 99% of the STPs that are in trouble that I visit, I see that they are capacity issues. 300 apartments, but 150 KL STP. Someone got their math wrong. You can't say they are wrong because they followed the National Building Code, which specifies it to be 135 liters.
I think it's a very, very valid point, which really enlightened me. I think it reaches the right authorities, or we can even think of recommending your name to the STP. Usually they have an advisory committee in Indian standards, so they collect the opinion of all the experts in the field and then arrive over all the standards. Probably this is outdated. I think it was done in 2016 to bring out the standard in 2016, NBC 2016. I think the research would have stopped at 2015, about 7 or 8 years back. So if they update themselves, probably they will come to the figures recommended by you.
They definitely haven't factored in, people using bathtubs or rain showers or all this fancy sanitary equipment.
Correct, correct. I think we should seriously think of writing to them
Definitely.
I would advise I can just take it up as a cost. Sir.
Sure.
Good, good. So that is about the capacity of STPs. Now coming to the installation challenges, what you face as an STP supplier, how do you call yourself as? That vendor is a very odd term, I feel. Operator is one, then supplier and installer, how do you call yourself as?
So we would call ourselves as an end-to-end STP services provider. We focus majorly on operations and maintenance, repair, refurbishment, upgrades, right? And only then, because this market is so huge and there are so many RWAs, residential, commercial and industrial customers who require our services here, and this is the major gap in the market that we identified, that there are not enough credible vendors, if one way to call us STP vendors, who specialize in this repair, upgrade, refurbishment and professional operations and maintenance. Right? Now, apart from this, we have another vertical where we do projects, where we build new STPs and stuff like that. But that's project-based work. At Greentivity, currently, 3/4 of our initiatives or our efforts are bent towards the repair, upgrade, refurbishment and operations and maintenance piece of the business.
This repair upgradation, does it arise because of the routine maintenance issue, or does it arise because of somebody has not conceived the project properly in the beginning and later it fails, then they come to you for help, that time do you refurbish? How does it operate?
It's 50-50. 50% of the projects that we visit, we find that those projects are very badly executed, either in terms of design or in terms of layout or in terms of the equipment chosen. Okay, and the second 50% is where the principal owner of the STP has not paid as much as attention as is required in operating and maintaining that STP.
Great.
So it's a mixture of both. There are cases where your builder would have given you a world-class STP, physical infrastructure wise 10 out of 10, but in 3, 4, 5 years you would have run it down to the ground because you've gone to someone who is not as professional to operate and maintain your STP.
STP, though it is like a beautiful luxury car driven by untrained driver.
Yes.
That's good. So coming to next is maintenance and operation. What are the key aspects of maintaining and what are the challenges you face? Can you just guide them on some maintenance aspects?
See, ultimately at the end of the day,
Aditya, could you please tell us what are the maintenance and operational issues that you come across and how they are solved?
so Suresha sir, there are two aspects to this operations and maintenance piece. Operationally, if you look at it, it all boils down to the skill levels of your operators, the skill levels of your environmental engineers, your process engineers, who back these operators, and they can get, any kind of an STP on track and are responsible for it operationally. Like if you look at this is a very good example of an STP that operationally is very well maintained. Now, when you look at pure maintenance, every bit of electromechanical equipment that you have will have a different operations requirement or maintenance requirement. Schedules. Just like, a Maruti in the old days, when I used to own a Maruti, every 5,000 kilometers it had to go for a service and oil change, a filter change. Right? But when I moved to a Hyundai, I was delighted because every 10,000 kilometers only it required. Nowadays, newer cars, probably 15,000 or 20,000 kilometers. Right. So, in a similar way, if you've got a raw sewage motor of, say, brand X, vis-a-vis a raw sewage motor of brand Y, each of those brand X and brand Y OEMs would have come up with their own maintenance schedules depending on how that pump or that motor was architected or, built up. It's the same things with your air blowers. It's the same thing with your filter press. It's the same thing with the sand and carbon filter. Everything has an operational life.
And a maintenance schedule.
Yeah. And a maintenance schedule as per the OEM. It is a misconception that, again in 99% of the cases that I come across, people only come to us and say, my motor has failed, can you do something? No one says that, okay, here is the maintenance chart or the history card of this motor that we have maintained. And this is the maintenance history of it. Yeah. Just like you have a service logbook of your car or your bike, right? People never maintain a history card or a logbook of each and every piece of equipment.
That reminds me, there are two types of maintenance. One is preventive maintenance.
Break fix.
Another is the breakdown maintenance.
Breakdown maintenance.
Preventive maintenance, they have to anticipate and remove certain things, replace certain things without waiting for it to fail.
Definitely.
That's very economical in the long run.
Yes.
Like our fan belt in a car. If you know that the threads are coming out, better throw it out. If you want to use it till the last minute, you may get stranded somewhere in the midnight somewhere.
Exactly, you said it.
So breakdown is when it totally breaks down, it is unusable. That time you move heaven and earth and spend more money, and also the whole thing stops. That time you get things rectified.
Yeah, so there's a colloquial saying, right? A stitch in time saves 9.
But in case of STP, it is more than 9.
No, it doesn't happen in most of the cases.
So that is the operation, the electromechanical part. Then the operation of the STP itself, that is the process itself. How do you maintain that?
First of all, an STP has to be operated 24/7/365. It is classified as a hazardous workplace under the labor department. So you cannot make anyone work in an STP for more than 8 hours.
That's a very valid point.
Yes. So you're typically looking at 3 trained operators via 3 8-hour shifts to man your STP. And those operators need to have the dedication and need to work, with a sense of military precision. Because it's a very precise operation. You're dealing with biochemistry, you're dealing with a very, very hazardous material, which is sewage. So it's just not the case, where you throw a couple of people to it and say, okay, you switch on and off these motors at this time and this time. There's a lot of skill, there is a lot of knowledge
Required
and experience that is required.
supervision also.
Supervision, obviously.
So that is a very valid point. Like it's a very high-tech operation. You can't leave it to.
It's a very
untrained.
operationally heavy, operationally intensive line of business, right?
Dealing with
sewage
hazardous,
treatment plants. Dealing with a hazardous substance.
substance. Yeah, that's a very valid point. Many people overlook it. They think sewage is something.
It's someone else's responsibility.
That's correct. That's the attitude. Then what are the customer concerns you face during operations? So now you have told us about the electromechanical maintenance, then the operations. What are the customer concerns that you face as a STP operators? What all they face and what are the issues that come up?
I'll answer this in parts because there are 2 or 3 scenarios that we come across most of the time. The first challenge that, or the first question that most customers ask us is, around cost. And most of these customers who've, I mentioned previously, who've burnt their fingers with 2, 3 other operators and then come to us, have been with operators who are, unskilled, unprofessional, untrained, and obviously much, much cheaper than us, right? So scaling up from, the low level where they were to some sort of a mid-range where we operate is one of the biggest challenges. Otherwise, if you leave the cost out of the equation, most customers complain about inconsistent water quality, both in terms of turbidity. Turbidity can be, color and dust particles and other sort of nasty things in the treated water, and then smell issues. So there is always inconsistency in what they receive in the name of treated water.
Okay.
Our hallmark again is that, any of our STPs, especially the apartment STPs that we own and operate for our customers, 24/7/365, we give the same consistent crystal clear water. Okay.
What is the limit of turbidity? Any figures are available?
Yeah, I can give you the chart offhand. Maybe I don't recollect it here. And you will forgive me for that, but I can give you those figures. There are 9 parameters as per the new norms that we have to follow. It revolves around, COD, chemical oxygen demand, biological oxygen demand, nitrogen, ammonia content in it, turbidity, how many parts per million of what is allowed and what is not allowed, and how much should be the pH value or the range of your treated water. There is a chart, and I'm sorry.
pH determines whether it is acidic or alkaline.
Exactly. It has to be as neutral, seven and a half.
Is neutral.
Neutral.
Neutral. It has to be neutral.
Yes.
So then, coming to the smell aspect, what are the causes? Why it happens? Is it because of improper treatment, or is it anything else?
Top of the mind, three things come to my mind when you have smelly treated water. One, it is an improper or incomplete biological treatment process. You are not aerating it for long enough, the sewage for long enough. Your biochemistry levels are very, very poor. Two, your filtration system, your sand and carbon filter may not be up to the mark, again because of operational issues or because of maintenance issues. And three, you might be using a very, very low grade or low concentration of chlorine.
Oh, finally. Okay.
So unless your biochemistry and aeration is fixed, unless your filters are in proper working order, chlorine plays no role. But then the myth is that, I will ignore both of them and I will dump chlorine. It doesn't work that way.
It's something like not taking bath, putting perfume and moving around.
You said it, sir.
Okay. So coming to the next, cost considerations. So what are the general cost factors associated with this? And both in installing, operating, as well as maintaining an STP for residential projects. You can just give a bird's eye view.
See, your month-on-month cost will involve the cost of manpower. When you give an AMC or an operations and maintenance contract to someone like us, we factor in the cost of those three operators that you need and the supervisory and the technical staff, right? So the O&M cost is only for, these people to show up at your STP and operationally make your STP functional, right? Then there is the cost of repairs, whether break fix or running repairs or, preventive maintenance. Over and above that, you will have the cost of chemicals and consumables.
Okay.
So it's not like, you give an AMC to someone and all these are non-comprehensive AMCs because no two STPs are similar.
Can you just elaborate on types of contracts generally that is done in the market? When you say AMC, do they do only the labor supply part to operate, or do they do with the material for the consumables, or how is it done? Can you just elaborate a little further?
Broadly, there are two kinds of AMC or operations and maintenance contract. One is a pure manpower contract, which is a non-comprehensive. So it is for the manpower and plus everything else is an add-on onto it.
Like consumables?
Like consumables, like repairs and everything.
Okay.
Right? The second is a comprehensive contract, which tend to be expensive. Okay, we call it, send your STP for a toss, total outsourcing kind of a project.
Okay.
Where the customer only has to give us the influent or the sewage from one end and electricity, and everything else is managed by us.
Totally.
So we charge on a cost per kiloliter that we treat.
Okay.
So, but that is very, very few in number because the market by and large hasn't yet matured to a service level agreement kind of a thing.
Okay.
Right? The market, 99% of the market is tuned towards, having manpower contracts or non-comprehensive AMC contracts.
Okay. In that, there are chances that they may not give you the consumables the way you wanted, or there could be, they suspect that there will be a lot of wastage and the cost goes up and this kind of issues.
That what separates, the professionals from the unprofessional or the unorganized sector, right? People have to believe that, professional STP organizations, work, just like any other corporate, for example, the Tata group of companies. No one in India is ever going to doubt them for anything unscrupulous or, anything unethical. But in our case, what happens is because of these 200 plus, I wouldn't want to call them fly by night, but unprofessional vendors in the market, all these perceptions come up. that they are not honest, or they are not doing their job properly, or they might be overcharging us, or not using the grade and quality of consumables that is supposed to be used.
So we covered about the operations and then the type of contracts. How the environment gets affected by a good operation or a bad operation of an STP. Can you just elaborate on that?
See,
How they protect the environment,
if your
conserve the water?
if your STP is rated an 8.5 to a 10 out of 10, right, then the impact on the environment is tremendous positively. Like this is a 200 KLD STP, and 198 KL of treated water is generated out of this STP. So we lose only a fraction of it that too due to evaporation and transmission losses. So the residents here are using 2 lakh liters of water, and 1,98,000 liters of water is extracted out of that sewage. So I'm sure everyone will be able to do the math on what is the positive impact it has on the environment.
Saving the water.
Saving the water, saving Mother Earth from pollution. What if this 2 lakh liters of
Left to the
sewage
drain.
is left to the drain and it flows through some lake
Correct.
or some other water body, right? And in turn, our groundwater gets polluted.
That's very, very, very disturbing.
So it's a cascading effect. So the same thing in reverse, for a badly operated STP.
So when a badly operated STP involves a lot of legal complications also, can you just tell us what are the legal and regulatory aspects of this?
From a legal and a regulatory perspective, we all know that it's a punishable offense. They can be, non-bailable warrant. There are various sections of the law. There is the Water Act.
So we talked about the operation, the environment impact, then about the legal impact you were talking. As far as I know, it's a process governed by the Water Act. Water Act is the one law which governs this, and if you violate and if you dump sewage in the public place, it's a punishable offense as per IPC 277
Yes,
and
you're absolutely
278.
right.
It's punishable offense.
277 and 278 are the applicable
Penal
acts,
code.
penal codes, and if I'm not wrong, one of them is non-bailable offense.
Yes, and if convicted, it involves prison term also.
Yes.
Apart from the penalty.
Apart from the financial monetary penalty, it involves jail time as
And
well.
penalty, if I remember, it is per day of continued offense. So if you delay more, the penalty goes up.
It gets compounded
Every day,
just like interest rate on a credit card.
That's correct. So this is quite serious compared to other thing. Then you are operating this STP for a length. There are different processes. How energy efficient the technologies that are being incorporated in STP now?
See, from the time we started off 5 years ago till now, what we find is every bit of equipment has become more power efficient by at least 15 to 20%. As the BIS and the IEEE codes keep changing for electrical equipment, there is 20, if not 30% of energy efficiency that is coming. But then that argument or that statement may not be valid, because the lifetime of a pump or a motor or any big piece of equipment in a STP like this is about 7 to 10 years. So unless the customer has, or unless the site has issues of being very power hungry or very energy inefficient, they will not see savings unless equipment is replaced with newer equipment. It's a big thing. But then to achieve that, you have to replace equipment.
Yeah, as the equipment become old, again the energy
Yeah,
efficiency
it's a phased
goes down.
sequential thing.
Every equipment has a life.
Yes,
So it's a bare truth, you have to face it.
you have to face it.
It has to be replaced.
Yes,
And more you operate, it will be more expensive.
obviously.
That's correct. Like using even cars. The old cars are not economical to maintain,
You said
both
it,
in
sir.
terms of fuel consumption as well as the maintenance cost, repairs and maintenance costs. Fine, that's correct. Then coming to the troubleshooting, what are the common issues that are faced by the residents, by the, or rather the homeowners, and how they can be resolved?
See, in the hands of a professional STP vendor, I don't think any one of them will face any issues unless there is a major power outage for more than 6 to 8 hours, or there is some act of God like a flood or something like that. If the
So now talking about the troubleshooting and common issue, shall I? So you told us about the common issues faced by the residents, nothing much unless there is a power outage or after God. Then as an operator, what are your pain points in operating STP in a residential environment?
the major issue comes with residents flushing down things that are not supposed to be flushed down in an STP. So whether it's a piece of cloth, whether it is a condom, a sanitary pad, pet hair or human hair, right? These things tend to come into an STP, and despite how much of a bar screening you have and things like that, they can creep into your process onwards from the bar screen, and then clog up the pumps and motors, clog up the plumbing, and this results in downtime. And any bit of downtime means that you have to break a biological process, and then you get inconsistencies in terms of quality of treated water.
How do we overcome? It's only by
It's
educating.
only by education, it's only by activism, it's only by making people more conscious to this fact. Anyway, every apartment complex collects dry waste, wet waste and reject waste. All that the residents need to do is all these unwanted derbis, as we call it, has to be
Consciously separated.
consciously separated and go into the reject waste.
So, do you conduct any awareness drives, or do you address them once in a way?
Yes, especially insights of our customers where this issue is beyond a certain point and beyond bearable or permissible limits. We do go there and address them, right? Like recently on January 26th, we were invited, or we got ourselves invited to a residential community where we went and not only educated them but pleaded with, practically we showed them our issues.
At least they will realize.
Yeah, they will realize.
Most of the times what I found is, yes, there are issues, but they have been not made aware of.
Exactly.
So nobody talks, it's a taboo.
Yeah, it is a taboo.
It's a taboo, nobody talks of, everything goes on and on and on. So when you educate, like other day, like they were talking about, Prime Minister talking on the ramparts of the Red Fort about the toilets, which was never done in the history of India. So that raised the awareness level
Definitely.
to such a level, and people started talking about it openly. So like that, probably you are talk with the resident about this hush issues, that will at least reduce your problems and also ultimately give them a better quality of treated water.
Yeah, I agree with you. In this particular community, the issue subsided by 70% post that one talk with them.
So that's really,
That's commendable, I would say.
yeah, definitely. So probably some more talks will further reduce it.
Further reduce it.
Good. Can you just, having operated all these STPs, what are the future trends in STP that are coming forth, which should be adopted and can bring down all your issues?
So there are a lot of trends, at a component level, you are getting much more efficient components and things like that. But with STPs, the latest may not be the greatest.
Oh.
It is what is apt for this particular application.
Okay.
So like when we are talking of the processes or the technologies before, and I said that, ASP or extended aeration is by far the best. Not only from an operator's perspective, but from a principal owner's perspective also, where it is very easy to operate and, the maintenance cost is not heavier, right? And now something on the internet, like, there are a lot of inventions that have happened in the US, in North America and in Europe. But those systems may not be apt for us because the nature, the biology of our sewage is different. Sewage is a human byproduct. What we ingest will come out and become our sewage. No, we are not eating baked stuff or we are not eating bland stuff. You know, the roti, dal, chawal that we eat produces a different kind of sewage. And we don't believe in paperwork, unlike, you know, people living abroad. You know, for us, still that health faucet or the bucket or mug is required for us to do our ablutions in the morning or to wash ourselves post us doing the big job. So the characteristics are different. You just can't take something that is a trend somewhere else, at least with regards to sewage, and copy paste it here in India.
Okay, that's a very well said. Can you just give us this case study of or a success story where you were able to implement and make a phenomenal change? Very briefly.
So my favorite case study or my favorite case study that I'd like to talk about is a customer of mine who's got a 16-year-old STP. Obviously, in the 16 years that they've owned and operated that STP, they've gone through multiple vendors. They are with us for the last 4 years. And the way we've tended to that STP and kept it, you know, brought it to a certain level and kept it, you know, just through preventive maintenance and, you know, break fix maintenance that was required initially. If you look at that STP, it's still purring like a cat. You know, there's no major investment that's gone in. It's just because of regular repair and preventive maintenance that the STP is up and running. That STP saves about 3 lakh liters of water per day for the customer.
That's a really big saving.
Yeah, it's a big saving.
Having said that, what are your closing thoughts? Some advice for the residents? And what are the takeaways that they should keep in mind?
So neglecting your STP can lead to a lot of heartache, a lot of trouble. Forget the law aspect of it, you know, that's not within our control, right? But it is an asset. If you nurture it and nourish it, you know, it can save you more than, you know, anywhere from between 50,000 to 3 lakhs a day.
Per day?
Per day.
Oh, that's a...
Imagine if you are buying water, this is a 200 KL, so 2 lakh liters of water. Additional 2 lakh liters of water if you are buying just to use for non-portable purposes. It's a utter waste of a natural resource. Where the raw material is free, all you have to do is just process it and reuse it. Imagine buying 2 lakh liters of water additionally via tankers. 1500 a tanker, even if it is a 10,000 liter tanker. So 20 tankers of water a day is being saved here.
Saved.
You do the math.
That's a really wonderful thought. And also we have known of agencies, if you can't consume all your treated water, they will pay money and buy it.
Definitely.
Supply it to industries, and you will also generate some revenue out of it. I think totally the costing comes to almost what you spend, what you will also get it back.
Definitely, there are a lot of agencies doing this nowadays, some of them more successfully than the others, but that's a trend that is catching up. You know, if you have anywhere between 1 lakh and 1.5 lakh liters of excess STP treated water, then it definitely makes sense to engage with these agencies and these pioneers who can help you, you know, open up a new revenue stream for your association or your RWA.
That's really great. It was wonderful talking to you, Aditya.
Thank you,
A
sir.
lot of things we learned. Good. Please keep things going. Wish you all the best.
Thank you so much. Thank you for visiting us, sir. Always a pleasure talking to Team Nemadi.
Thank you.
Thank you.